Hi there, Elena. So we're working hard towards helping you get that 7. So let's take a look at this set of essays. Animal testing, fine. Okay. I think you're above 150 words. Let's see. Nope, not quite. 145. So, as you may or may not know, you no longer have to write 150 words, but it definitely is in your best interest because it's really difficult to get a high score in IELTS in task 1 if you don't have 150. They say that it's difficult to get a 9 with under 150, but I would even go so far to say that I would even go so far as to say you really are going to have a difficult time getting a 7 with less than 150 words, just because of the way the answers and the questions are. So let's take a look at what you wrote here. Like I said, you were 145 words. So I would have liked to have seen more, but let's see what you actually did here. The pie chart shows and compares the most popular species used in the U.S. for animal testing. Data are given in percentages. Okay, fine. Firstly, we can see that rabbits are the most used, and they are followed by hamsters. The summation of these two animals is more than half of the total amount. I wouldn't have said in fact, I would have said specifically they are 38.7 and 27.7 respectively. Okay, so you decided to focus your first paragraph on rabbits and hamsters. I don't disagree with that. I think you could have been a little more detailed here. I think that it's really interesting that rabbits are the most used. And it's a good idea to actually highlight what that means. Like when you're looking at this percentage, like when you're looking at the image, it's very clear that it's close to 40%, which is huge. So rather than just saying this, I would have added that extra piece of information. We can see that rabbits are the most used at almost 40%. Followed by hamsters at over 25%. The summation of these two animals is more than half the total amount. More specifically, their individual figures are this and this, respectively. So, why am I suggesting doing this? Because you really want to highlight some of the important things here. It's a small difference from what you're doing, not a huge difference, honestly. But it really does kind of give emphasis to these numbers. I mean, when you look at this blue just kind of overwhelms you, doesn't it? It's just huge. So give it some attention, give it some, some verbiage here and explore it a little bit, as well as this number here, this figure rather. Okay, secondly, I wouldn't have said there are dogs. It's a little awkward. I would have phrased it a little differently. I would have said, secondly, dogs represent less than 1/3 the figure of hamsters with 10.2%. All right, I like that you made this comparison. That was very good. Let's see. Then another 20% of animals, not consistent, careful with your grammar here. Then another 20% of animals are made up of pigs and primates with 9.3 and 9.9 respectively. Okay. Finally, the last 5% left is for sheep, which are less than 1/7 compared to rabbits. Okay. I'll talk about this in a minute. Overall, in the US, different types of species are used for animal testing. In particular, more than 1/4 of animals used for testing are rabbits, whereas sheep are the species, careful, not sheep are the species less interested in this kind of experiment. You know what that's saying? That's as if you ask the sheep, "Hey, are you interested in this kind of experiment?" And the sheep were like, not really. So that's not the appropriate way of saying this. You want to say something else. Let's try it differently. In particular, more than a quarter of animals used for tests are rabbits, whereas sheep are the species less used in this kind of experiments. That's fine. Okay. So it's really just a change of one word, and one word just makes a huge difference here. So I really wanted to talk to you about this. As we do in other essays, in other task ones, where you kind of group, what's the commonality here in this? You've got 4 categories here, right? You've got dog, pigs, primates, and sheep. They're all under 10%. So I think that's an interesting kind of blanket statement to make. So rather than just saying, secondly, the dogs represent 1/3 of the hamsters with 10%, you could have had a different intro statement here. So you've got these 2, which really take up the lion's share of this percentage. And then you could have said here, the remaining animals each account for less than 10% of the animals used in animal testing. And then you could have said, more specifically, dogs, which represent less than 1/3 the figure of hamsters, are used at 10%. So that is a way to do it. So you're really kind of saying, like, okay, here I had the really big number, here I had the second biggest number, and then the rest of them all fall under this catch-all, under this umbrella of 10%, more or less. So that's an interesting thing to do. Okay? Let's see. And then you had your overview, and that's fine. So on the whole, this was okay. But because I already mentioned to you that it it was a little short, I want to show you just different ways that you can extend this. All right, let's move on to your task 2 about staying in the same job. Okay. What it is better for our job career is discussed, and it will be for other years because it is difficult to find which is the best thing to do. Somebody thinks that is better to stay in the same place all the time. Others believes that is better to switch from one job to another. As far as I'm concerned, I think that excuse me, is really difficult to find the perfect job at the beginning of our career. So it is better to change job at least once during our career just to be sure that the one we are doing is the right one. In this essay, I will show the advantages and disadvantages of these 2 scenarios. Okay, so I was happy from here on, but that first part, Elena, was full of errors, I'm afraid. It just had a lot of different mistakes. So we have to talk about it a little bit. So let's look at that first sentence again. What is better for our career is often discussed, and it will be, because it is difficult. All right, this didn't really make any sense even after I fixed the grammatical errors in the first part. So you needed a clearer sentence that rephrases the topic. Let's see. A good starter sentence would have been something like, it is widely debated whether we should stay in the same job throughout our career or if it is in our best interest to switch jobs from time to time. Okay, so that's one way you could have rephrased it. Now, when you say somebody thinks, it's as if you're referring to somebody specific, and that's not the case. You want to say something like some think. So, some meaning some people. And this makes it a lot more general. It's a better way to express this. So, some think that it is better to stay in the same place. Not all the time, because that means like 24 hours a day. That's not what they mean. To stay in the same job for life, while others believe that it is better to switch from one job to another one. And then the rest of this was fine. So, on the one hand, I think that staying in the same job could have could have is correct here, okay? Could have beneficial aspects for our life and career. The reason for this is twofold. Firstly, if you work for the same company for several years, you have more possibilities to increase your position and you can do a better career. Well, you don't do a better career, you could have a better career. Secondly, if you always work at the same place, you have your own routine, and this means that you should be more relaxed and quiet with less inconvenience. Now, here, I feel like you're kind of trying to tell me something else. This is not a really precise way of expressing what it is you want to say. Let's see. I think maybe you mean something else. You have your own routine, and this means that you should be more relaxed and able to work with less inconvenience. Maybe this is more what you're trying to say. For example, my mother, not is, but my mother does this. No, not even does, because you said since here. When you say since, you have to use present perfect. So, for example, my mother has been doing, okay, so present perfect continuous. Let's try it again. My mother has been doing the same job since she started working, and now she has a great position with a lot of benefits. Therefore, it is a positive decision to stay in the same job for a lot of years, and it can give you satisfaction and serenity. One satisfaction, there's not multiple. Let's keep going. The example with your mother was very good. So, on the other hand, it is fair to consider that the more experiences you have, you don't do an experience, you have an experience, the more possibilities to be happy with your job you have. With this sentence, no, don't say with this sentence, just say with this I mean. You don't need to say with this sentence. You mean with this idea. So just say with this. With this I mean that if you never change, you will never know. Sometimes it is correct to switch jobs because only by doing it can you understand what is the best one for you. Now, why did I do that? Because when you start a clause with the word only, you have to do something called inversion. I want you to find a good grammar resource and you'll see it talking about inversion. It essentially is something we use for emphasis. And in order to create this emphasis, we have to make the sentence kind of look like a question. When you use only here, so it is correct to switch the job because only by doing it can you understand what is the best one for you. Or can you understand what the best one is for you. This is a really difficult sentence that you've tried here. I'm really happy that you tried it, but it does have multiple mistakes in it. So you tried to do something really, really rather complex grammatically. Try to simplify it because it did have a couple of different errors in it, okay? All right, so for example, I personally hadn't realized that the work I was doing 2 years ago was not the right one for me. You don't mean the work, you mean the job. You don't mean the work, you mean the job. The job I was doing 2 years ago was not the right one for me. That would be more appropriate. Now I am doing another one and I think it suits me better than the previous one. Thus, although the routine is easier to follow, we should find the courage to change it for something maybe better. Good. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that regarding jobs, It is better if we try different positions before we find the right one and the more suitable for us. And the one more suitable for us. All right, Elena, so I see a lot of really good things happening here. I see you making an effort to have some complex grammar, to really have cohesive paragraphs. I'm happy with your task achievement. I think you did a really good job with that. For me, the weak spot in this essay is the grammar. You really are going to have to work hard to improve some of the grammar, to make it more accurate. Like I said in this paragraph, you tried to do something really rather complicated. There were multiple like advanced grammatical things happening here that it would take me a while to explain. I tried to briefly explain to you what inversion was. And here, this too, this was incorrect because it's actually an indirect question. So you want to avoid some of this. Now, that doesn't mean you should avoid complex language. No, far from it. You should use complex language. But this was maybe a little too complicated. So I want you to be careful with some of the grammar, like this here, for example. This is the kind of mistake that at a 7, I really don't want you to make. You needed to be using present perfect. Continuous, my mother has been doing, okay? And things like that at a 7, you should be getting right, as well as some of the other things that we talked about throughout the essay. So keep working, see what you can do on your own to revise some of this grammar, to correct some of this grammar, and to get it more consistently accurate. All right, I'll wait for your next essays. Looking forward to it, so good luck.